In the 5th year of his marriage to Jason, he fell in love with his best friend's sister. Can you stop being so suspicious? I just treat her like a sister, and we are completely innocent. She's so young and sick. I'm just taking care of her. It's not safe for her to travel alone, and I'm accompanying her out of a sense of responsibility. You're overthinking it. Can you not hold a grudge against a little girl? I looked at my increasingly unfamiliar lover and nodded, saying okay. He was satisfied with my tolerance and thoughtfulness while I marked the final stroke on the calendar. The 30-day cooling-off period was over. On Jason's birthday, I gave him a divorce certificate. When I arrived at the hospital, it was already past 11 at night. I stood in the dimly lit corridor, and through the glass wall ahead, I could see the people in the infusion area. My husband, who said he was accompanying a client to play cards, is now holding a slender young girl in his arms. The girl, with an 4 needle in her arm, leaned weakly against him, pouting as she spoke. Jason wore a gentle and patient expression. I stared intently at the scene. I have seen that woman many times. She is Lily, Jason's good buddy's cousin, 7 years younger than them. Young and vibrant, charming and lovely. She is someone I, a woman worn down by 5 years of marriage, cannot compare to. No wonder Jason is becoming increasingly impatient with me, because all his patience has been given to others. I don't know how long I stood there, but I finally took a step and walked into the infusion area. Jason saw me from a distance, his expression changed, and he said something to Lily before striding over. He roughly grabbed my wrist and pulled me into a hidden corner of the infusion area. What are you doing here? I didn't tell him that since last month, Lily had been secretly sending me their chat records and ambiguous photos, showing off to me. I asked him, "Aren't you playing cards with the clients?" A moment of guilt flashed across Jason's face, but it quickly turned into a confident assertion. Lily suddenly fell ill, and Ethan couldn't leave, so he asked me to accompany his sister for an 4. Don't misunderstand again. I'm really tired today and don't feel like arguing with you. Besides, we're in a hospital, and it would be embarrassing to make a scene. You might not care, but I do. Jason and I have indeed had several fierce arguments over Lily, exhausting ourselves and looking utterly terrible. He actually knows about embarrassment too. I raised my head and asked him, "Aren't you going to ask me why I came to the hospital?" Jason was taken aback for a moment before he seemed to remember. "Are you sick?" I smiled, my tone light, as if I were joking. "Otherwise, do you think I came here to catch you in the act?" Jason's expression changed in an instant, colorful and very exciting. He started to give me a hard time. "Mandy, you're at it again, aren't you? How many times do I have to tell you? There's nothing going on between Lily and me. I'm just taking care of her out of a sense of responsibility. That's all." I looked at him calmly and said, "I didn't say anything this time." Jason's face turned even uglier as I cornered him. "Do you think I don't know you're being sarcastic? What's wrong with you? You weren't like this before. You used to be obedient and well-behaved. Just look at how you are now, sharp-tongued and bitter, like a nagging old woman." My fingers curled down, and even though I had mentally prepared myself, Jason's words still pierced my heart with pain. I used to be obedient and well-behaved, so why doesn't he talk about his past? He used to love me and cherish me, holding me in the palm of his hand, swearing that he would only love me forever. But now, "All right, if you're fine, hurry home." Jason began to urge me to leave. "We can talk about it when we get home. I don't want to embarrass myself with you in the hospital." He spoke while glancing back at Lily, afraid that I would start arguing with him here and disturb her. I nodded and said, "All right, you should head home early too. I really have something to discuss with you." Jason looked at me in shock, completely not expecting that I would be so easy to deal with this time. I turned around and walked out of the hospital. Back home, I sat at the dining table, staring blankly into space. I had been married to Jason for 5 years. Before this, marrying him was my dream come true. I saw him as my salvation, my everything. To be honest, when I first discovered that he was cheating and had fallen in love with another woman, my first reaction was not anger, but fear. Fear that he would leave me, abandon me. My father passed away early and my mother remarried, but my stepfather was an alcoholic and abusive. At the slightest inconvenience, he would beat me. As I grew older, he not only hit me, but also laid his hands on me inappropriately. I was young at that time, and having been beaten since childhood, I was too afraid to resist. It was Jason who rescued me from hell. He took care of me, showed me kindness, gave me love, and ultimately gave me a home. I have relied on him for nearly 10 years, from my youth until now. I never expected that our relationship would end in such a hasty and ugly manner. At 2 in the morning, Jason returned. He felt guilty, so his attitude wasn't very good. "Why aren't you asleep yet? Are you going to argue with me again?" I smiled and said to him, "There's a document that urgently needs your signature." "What?" Just as Jason finished speaking, his phone rang. He looked down at it, and his expression instantly turned anxious and guilty. "I know, that must be Lily's call. The agreement to sell the house. Aren't we supposed to be exchanging it for another one?" I wanted to see if he still cared, even a little, about our home, so I deceived him. "Are you signing now?" I placed the divorce agreement on the table, my fingertips slightly curled, nervously watching him. Jason did not notice anything unusual. He didn't even take a second glance at the agreement and simply flipped to the end, signing his name neatly. I suddenly laughed. Jason seemed to sense something and frowned as he asked me, "What are you laughing at?" I looked up at the man I had loved for 10 years, laughing at myself. "Thank you, Jason. Thank you for taking care of me for 10 years. And thank you for making letting go incredibly simple." Jason didn't come back all night. The next day, I got up and went to the company to handle my resignation. After I finished my marriage, I planned to move to the countryside of the city where my grandmother lives. Although my grandmother passed away a long time ago, there is still an old house in the countryside that should be livable after some tidying up. The handover for my resignation will take 1 to 2 weeks, during which I still need to work normally. After work, I went to the law firm to talk to a lawyer about the important points of divorce and property distribution. I want to take my fair share of the joint assets between Jason and me. By the time I got home, it was already evening. As soon as I opened the door, I was met with Jason's unhappy face. "Didn't you finish work a long time ago? Why are you back so late?" I casually said, "I just took a stroll outside." Jason didn't care what I did every day. He just said, "Then hurry up and cook. I'm about to starve." I remained calm and said to him gently, "I've already eaten outside. You can order takeout." "You've eaten with whom? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I've been waiting for you at home." Jason complained unhappily, "I rarely get to have a meal at home, and you actually made me eat takeout?" I don't want to provoke unnecessary arguments, so I compromise. "If you're really hungry, I'll go cook you a bowl of noodles." Jason was finally satisfied, leaning against the doorframe, his rare calm demeanor reminiscent of the times when our relationship was still good, chatting and talking with me. "I've been busy with work lately, and have neglected you a bit. In a few days, it's our wedding anniversary, and you've always wanted to go to the beach for a vacation. I'll take some time off and take you out to have a good time for a few days. Also, my birthday is coming up. What are you planning to get me for a birthday gift this year?" I watched the water gradually come to a boil, momentarily lost in thought. Jason's birthday is 2 weeks after our wedding anniversary, and in previous years, I would carefully plan the celebration, racking my brain to find the perfect birthday gift for Jason. This year, let's give him a divorce certificate. Thinking of this, I smiled and said, "I'll give you one, a surprise you definitely wouldn't expect." Jason was completely unaware of my unusual behavior. Instead, he was filled with anticipation, feeling that I was particularly docile and obedient today. He hugged my waist from behind, his chin affectionately resting on my shoulder, his breath warm. "Darling, it's been a long time since we made love. I'm on my period today." Those words extinguished all his enthusiasm. Jason was displeased. "Why are you on your period again? Every time I try to reach you, you always have a bunch of excuses. It's really disappointing. Ever since I discovered his affair with Lily, I have refused to let him touch me, fearing I might catch something. Except for that one time a while ago when I got drunk at a dinner party. I'd been too busy lately, and my period has been irregular." I casually made up an excuse. Jason was very displeased. walking out of the kitchen with a dark expression. Wait for me to cook the noodles and place them in front of him. He didn't give me a good look, but instead said to me, "Let's just sleep in separate rooms from now on, since you won't let me touch you anyway." This is exactly what I want. So I said, if you want it this way, then let it be. Jason looked up at me, his face darker than the bottom of a pot, a mix of frustration and anger. "Mandy, you really did well." He threw down his chopsticks and stormed out. I calmly poured out the uneaten noodles, then applied a face mask and began to gather the things I needed for sleeping in separate rooms. The phone vibrated at that moment and I picked it up. It was a photo sent by Lily. Through the hotel's translucent bathroom glass, I saw Jason taking a shower. Lily, brother Jason. I clenched my phone tightly, and after several seconds, I regained my strength, took a screenshot of the chat history, and sent it to my lawyer as evidence of infidelity. After Jason said they should sleep in separate rooms, he began a business trip that lasted 10 days. He didn't give me the cold shoulder. Occasionally, he would still message me to update me on his plans. But he doesn't know that Lily sends me photos and videos every day, showing off the sweetness and happiness of their subsidized trip. Looking at this information, I sometimes find myself in a daze. In the past, Jason used to pamper me like this, treating me well. It turns out he really loved me back then. It turns out he is truly in love with someone else now. Looking at Lily's message, he said today that he is willing to give me anything, and even asked me to have a child for him. Sister Mandy, you have been married for so many years. Why haven't you had a child for him? Is it that you can't have one? What a pity, after being married for so long. A pang of suffocation gripped my heart. Ever since marrying Jason, I had been longing to get pregnant, to make our little home more lively and complete. But I couldn't conceive. Perhaps it was the injury inflicted by my stepfather in my childhood, or perhaps it was fate, I do not know. The phone vibrated. Lily, if I were pregnant, would you willingly divorce me? I slowly moved my fingers and replied to her. Then, dear best, I wish you happiness. Putting down my phone, I began to pack my things and contact the real estate agent. Jason was on a business trip for 10 days, and I spent 10 days packing things up. I divided the things in the house into 3 categories: Jason's, mine, and trash. The day Jason came back, I was about to throw away the last bag of trash when he glanced over and immediately frowned. "Why did you throw away the doll I gave you?" When I was in a relationship with him, we often played claw machines, and over time, our home was filled with dozens of various cute dolls. I smiled and said, "I'm moving soon. There's no place to put it." Jason frowned. "Then you can't." "Lily?" I interrupted Jason, looking behind him. "Are you here to see Jason?" Jason's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly turned around to scold. "What are you doing here?" Lily immediately burst into tears, her young face pale and pitiful, filled with a sense of injustice. "There's a pervert near the house I rented. He kept knocking on my door last night and was lurking by my window during the day. I'm so scared." She grabbed Jason's arm, tears streaming down her face. "Brother Jason, I'm really so scared. Can I stay at your house for a few days? I'm begging you." Jason instinctively wrapped his arms around Lily, but mindful of my reaction, he cautiously said, "Mandy, you see." I immediately laughed. "I've been moving these past few days, and my home is a mess. I don't have any extra sheets or duvet covers, so I'm afraid I can't let Lily stay over." Lily's tears fell even more heavily. "Brother Jason, what am I going to do?" Jason looked at me displeased. "However, the new house is almost ready, so you can go live there." Jason was taken aback and suddenly fell silent. I ignored them again, went downstairs, and threw away the trash. When we returned home, Lily was no longer there. Jason stood alone in the empty living room, frowning as he asked me, "Are you really willing to let Lily live in our new house?" "I am willing. What's wrong?" Jason stared at me, his expression dark. "Mandy, you've been acting strange lately. Are you thinking of something bad?" I smiled and said, "In half a month, it will be your birthday, so of course I'm preparing a surprise for you." Jason's complexion finally looked a bit better. He promised me, for our upcoming wedding anniversary, you should ask for leave from the company. And I'll take you to the seaside for a vacation. That night, Lily sent me the after photos of her and Jason on the new bed in their new house. She also said, "Sister Mandy, the bed you chose is so soft." Brother Jason said it's much more comfortable than your old bed. You must have worked hard to tidy up the new house, but Brother Jason has been spending time with me lately and hasn't had the time to help you. But this is something you should be doing anyway. After all, you're getting old and have only this one role left, right? I didn't reply to the message. The new house wasn't cleaned by me. I hired someone to do it, and I paid with Jason's credit card. I never intended to live in that new house. So no matter how Jason and others mess around, it's none of my business if they want to urinate inside. At that moment, I received a message from the agent saying that the buyer agreed to my request for a one-time payment. We would sign the contract tomorrow, and the money would be in my account the day after. Accordingly, I also have to move out before the day after tomorrow. I replied that it was fine. This is what I had planned all along. After the divorce, the old house belongs to me, and the new house and the loan belong to Jason. As for the savings, half and half. The process of selling the house went smoothly, and that night I moved to the hotel. Then I messaged Jason to tell him that the house had been sold and that he shouldn't return to the old home for now. Jason was a bit angry, feeling that I hadn't informed him and had completed the house selling process on my own. I told him this as part of his birthday surprise. Jason piqued my curiosity. "What surprise have you prepared for me? Is it expensive? I think taking away half of your property should be expensive, right?" "Yeah, quite expensive. On our wedding anniversary, I still pack my bags." For Jason, I truly loved him. Traveling to the seaside with him was an obsession I had since my teenage years. So, this trip will serve as a perfect conclusion to this relationship of mine. After the journey, I will no longer have any obsession with him. When it was time to leave, I called Jason to ask when he would arrive. But the call was disconnected. Jason texted me back, "Sorry, Mandy, I have to work overtime for a meeting. Let's postpone the trip. How about we go when it's my birthday?" Looking at this information, I suddenly burst into laughter. I really must have lost my mind to think that Jason and I would still have a chance to travel together for a farewell. The next moment, Lily's text came through. It was a photo of her and Jason holding hands, walking by the seaside. "The seaside view is really beautiful, Sister Mandy. It's such a pity you didn't come. In 2 weeks, the divorce cooling-off period will be over. I tell myself in my heart that I can hold on for just 2 more weeks. I haven't eaten yet, so I ordered takeout and started watching a web series." A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Surprised by the speed of the delivery, I opened the door. Then, I saw a person who could make me fall into hell in an instant: my stepfather. He had actually been released from prison. I wanted to close the door, but it was too late. My stepfather barged in aggressively, grabbed my hair, and threw me to the ground, followed by a flurry of punches and kicks. I couldn't react at all. My strength was no match for my violent stepfather. He hit me while cursing me as the worthless person who got him imprisoned. I feel as if I have fallen into a nightmare, as if I have instantly returned to my childhood. Instinctively, I struggled to reach my phone and pressed the speed dial. I called Jason for help, foolishly hoping that he would show up like before and pull me out of this hell. My stepfather slapped me across the face. I fell to the ground, but still tightly held onto my phone. I couldn't help but say, "Jason, please pick up my call." The stepfather let out a cold laugh, grabbed my hair, dragged me up, and threw me onto the bed. "Your husband is busy with his little lover right now." He tightened his grip around my neck. "He won't come to save you, Mandy." I suddenly realized, "Is it Lily who told you I was here?" The stepfather sneered. "Yes, your husband and your little lover both have a share in this. You call the police, and I'll slowly settle the score for getting me locked up." The stepfather's hand was raised once again. As it fell on my face, I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye and saw Jason hanging up on my call for help. Yes, he is no longer the person who can save me. During the trip, Jason sent messages and made calls to Mandy, but received no response. He wasn't too surprised. It was only natural for her to be angry that he didn't show up for such an important occasion as their wedding anniversary trip. It was just that during the trip with Lily, he was somewhat distracted. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but there was always a vague sense of unease, as if something bad had happened. So, whenever he had a moment, he would call Mandy. As a result, the phone was turned off. Jason grew increasingly uneasy, disregarding Lily's dissatisfaction, and hurriedly ended their trip to the seaside. At the airport, he specially bought a gift to apologize. Lily linked her arm with his, "Not very happy, brother Jason. Are you really going to divorce her?" Jason flashed an uncomfortable expression. "Why are you asking this all of a sudden?" Lily deliberately probed. "My period hasn't come this month, and I'm wondering if I might be pregnant." Jason's expression changed immediately, and he hurriedly asked, "Are you really pregnant?" Lily frowned at him. "Why are you reacting this way? Didn't you say you wanted children, but Mandy's health isn't good, and she can't get pregnant? You've always been very regretful about it, right? Now that I'm giving you a child, shouldn't you be happy?" Jason frowned. "It's not as simple as you think. In a couple of days, I'll take you to the hospital for an examination." Lily immediately shook off Jason's arm in anger and turned to leave. Jason hurried forward to comfort. After such a delay, it wasn't until the next day that he finally had time to go to the hotel to find Mandy. Living in a hotel all the time isn't ideal. He plans to bring Mandy back to their new home today. Jason asked the front desk in surprise, "Did Mandy check out?" "When?" The receptionist looked at him warily. "Who are you, and what do you want with her?" "I am her husband." The front desk immediately showed a disdainful expression. "Don't be ridiculous. As her husband, you wouldn't know that she was attacked in her home by her stepfather and nearly lost her life? That incident caused quite a stir and was extremely urgent. If she hadn't managed to break free in time and escape the room and coincidentally run into a passing guest, she wouldn't even know if she were still alive." Jason was shocked. He suddenly remembered that Mandy had called him that day, but he was busy with Lily, so he hung up directly. Since then, Mandy has been out of contact. Jason's face turned pale in an instant. He actually hung up on Mandy's distress call. He had worked so hard to rescue Mandy from hell, and now he had pushed her back into it. Mandy must hate him to death. She might even divorce him. Jason felt darkness envelop him and suddenly collapsed to the ground.
Done.
Jason thought, Mandy must hate him to death. He inquired in various ways and finally found out which hospital Mandy was staying at, but by the time he rushed over, the bed was already empty. It seemed intentional. Mandy was just discharged from the hospital this morning. Jason knew he had made a big mistake and hurried back to their new home, but there was still no one inside. Upon closer inspection, this brand new empty house didn't even have a single item belonging to Mandy. How could this happen? Jason couldn't believe it, pulling open the cabinets and drawers one by one, trying to find a personal item that belonged to Mandy.
No.
There was nothing that belonged to Mandy, nor was there a single item that connected him to Mandy. This new home was spotless, as if Mandy had never set foot in it. Unable to reach her by phone, Jason could only go to Mandy's company. At that moment, he realized that Mandy had submitted her resignation a month and a half ago. A week prior, she had completed the departure process. Jason wandered desolately through the busy streets, his heart filled with confusion and pain. He suddenly realized that he seemed to have lost his Mandy. On Jason's birthday, I turned on my phone. Almost the next second, Jason's call came in. I paused for a moment and answered. Jason's voice was anxious. "Mandy, where are you?" "I'm coming to find you now." I said to him, "Let's hang up first. I'll send you the location information." I didn't continue listening to Jason, hung up the phone, and then sent him the location information of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Soon, Jason's call came in again, and I hung up completely. My phone kept vibrating nonstop because Lily was constantly messaging me. I didn't want to look, but my eyes were too quick and inevitably caught a few snippets. "I am pregnant, and it's Jason Brothers' child." This message made my gaze pause for a moment, then I looked away. A suffocating feeling of repression surged continuously from the chest. After my stepfather was arrested, I also reported Lily because she revealed my location. She was in cahoots with my stepfather. To my surprise, my stepfather defended her, claiming that Lily didn't mean to say it and that they were not accomplices. Therefore, Lily was acquitted. Sister Mandy, I heard that you were attacked by your stepfather, but luckily nothing serious happened. That's great. We both have good luck. You were fortunate to be unharmed, and I was lucky to be pregnant. I closed my eyes, suppressing my emotions, and took screenshots of all the chat records, sending them to Jason one by one. Jason immediately replied to me, Mandy, can you let me explain? What happened with Lily was an accident. It was just for fun. I never thought about divorcing you. After all these years together, the person I love the most is only you. I couldn't be bothered to look. After sending the chat screenshot, I just deleted Jason. When I arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Jason had already been there. It had only been half a month since we last met, yet he had lost a whole circle of weight, his eye socket sunken, and his eyes filled with bloodshot veins. He stared at me intently and took a step forward. Mandy. I avoided him, my expression calm. Let's go. Register for the divorce. Jason lowered his voice, sounding somewhat pleading. Can we go home first? Let me explain slowly. Don't just jump to divorce. I continued to walk inside, and Jason followed closely behind me, still unaware that he had signed the divorce agreement. He thought we still had a month of cooling-off period, so he wasn't too anxious. Until we stopped at the divorce registration office. Jason's expression finally changed. He said to me pale-faced, Mandy, don't you also not want to get divorced? Look, you've even come to the wrong place. Let's go home first, okay? I took out the divorce agreement and placed it in front of Jason, saying to him, we have long passed the 30-day cooling-off period. I'm here today to finalize our divorce. Jason couldn't believe it. How is that possible? I never signed anything. He snatched the document, flipped to the last page, and was disheartened to see his own signature. He recalled how he had signed this document. I smiled slowly and said, Jason, this is the birthday gift I prepared for you. Do you like it? Jason's face turned pale. So you had been planning to divorce so early. Looking back now, everything actually had its early signs. No wonder they no longer argue because of Lily. No wonder she suddenly became tolerant and generous, even willing to give up the new house. No wonder. Jason anxiously grabbed my hand. Give me one more chance, Mandy. I will turn over a new leaf. I looked at him and calmly said, Jason, I no longer love you. The last trace of color on Jason's face faded completely in an instant. My last bit of attachment to you was completely drained while I was attacked, and you were off traveling with Lily. I am grateful for your presence in my life. I loved you, and you loved me too. But now, let's part ways amicably. Jason trembled as he said, Mandy, I love you now too. Please give me another chance, okay? So I said, Lily is pregnant. If you don't divorce me, what about her? What about the child in her womb? Jason struggled in silence. I looked at him, wanting, and couldn't help but sneer inwardly. I think Jason doesn't really love me that much. He doesn't divorce me, but it's just that he can't bear to part with me, his dutiful wife who serves him. Just looking at his pleading expression, it was clear he didn't love Lily that much. Perhaps his feelings for her were merely a fleeting attraction. But in any case, none of this mattered to me anymore. Jason, let's get a divorce. I said to Jason. This time, Jason didn't ask me to leave. Instead, after the divorce paperwork was completed, he said to me, I'm sorry, Mandy, but I really have you in my heart. I originally wanted to mock him for being disgusting, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Lily, so I changed my question and asked, what about Lily? If she isn't pregnant, would you still divorce me? Jason bitterly said, no, Mandy, I never actually thought about divorcing you. If we had children, we wouldn't have come to this point, right? I replied coldly, fortunately, we don't have any children. Having children in such a life is simply not worth it. Jason's face turned pale again. He seemed to want to say something to me, but was interrupted by Lily's angry shout. She rushed over. Jason, what do you mean? You didn't say this when you were pursuing me back then. I don't want to see them argue. I need to pack up the divorce certificate and leave. Mandy. Jason, go after her. I'll go get rid of the baby right away. I hailed a taxi and left directly. On the way, I received a text from Jason. Mandy, the bond we have built over nearly 10 years is unmatched by anyone. Will you wait for me? Wait until Lily has the baby. I couldn't be bothered to finish reading, so I just deleted and blocked Jason. I originally wanted to go directly to the station, but halfway there I suddenly felt carsick and nauseous, throwing up nonstop. The taxi stopped by the roadside, and I held onto the trash can, throwing up for quite a while. "I'm sorry, driver," I said, covering my mouth. "I've dirtied your car. I'll pay for the damage." The driver is a cheerful middle-aged woman with sharp eyes. "Sister, are you pregnant?" I immediately took a taxi to the hospital, urgently registered for an examination. I don't trust pregnancy tests. A blood test is the only way to be truly certain. While waiting in line, I unconsciously touched my small belly. I truly want to have a child. For someone like me, who has no parents and feels as lonely as a floating weed, a child of my own would become my bond with the world. Not now. The child's father cannot be a scumbag like Jason. During the time spent waiting in line, each moment felt like a year, and my mind was flooded with a jumble of chaotic thoughts. I had an examination before, and the doctor said that I was born with a thin uterine wall, making it difficult to conceive, and I cannot have an abortion, otherwise it would be even harder to get pregnant in the future. I began to regret that I hadn't gone to the gathering in the first place. Then there wouldn't have been that time. Just as I was thinking, Jason's voice suddenly came from beside me. "Mandy, what are you doing here?" He lifted his head, his gaze landing on the obstetric sign, his expression shifting from surprise to ecstatic joy. Jason didn't hesitate to push Lily aside and ran towards me. "You're pregnant?" "Right, Mandy, you're pregnant. We're having a baby." "I don't," I retorted. Jason simply didn't believe it. He was convinced that I was pregnant, but just wanted a divorce, so I was hiding it from him. Jason was immersed in ecstasy, completely ignoring Lily's ugly expression. "We're getting remarried." "Mandy, let's go get remarried right now. From now on, I'll be devoted to you alone." I have to emphasize, Jason, I am not pregnant, and even if I were, I would not want this child. Since I have already decided to go out, I will not leave myself any ties. If I am to cut off, I will do it completely with Jason. Jason circled around me, swearing, "Mandy, please don't be impulsive, okay? The child is innocent. I'll break up with Lily right away, or whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." Lily's anguished roar. "What about the child in my belly?" "Jason, is the one in my belly not your child?" For the past half-month, Jason had been tormented by pressure and guilt. Faced with Lily's questioning, he suddenly lost control and erupted. "I clearly made you take your medicine every time. Why didn't you take it properly? Now that you're pregnant, it's all your own responsibility." Lily looked at Jason in disbelief. "You didn't say that to me before. You said you always wanted children, and if I got pregnant, I should have the baby. And you would take responsibility for raising it." Jason, losing his patience, said, "That's because Mandy couldn't have children before, but now she can. What do you even count for?" Lily's face turned pale all at once, her eyes glaring fiercely at Jason. "And about my divorce. We clearly agreed that our matters wouldn't be told to Mandy, yet you secretly added her as a friend and even showed her photos, forcing her to make me divorce." Jason used harsh words, showing no mercy. "You are truly despicable and shameless. I am so disappointed in you. Jason, I'm going to kill you." Lily broke down, lunging at Jason like a madwoman. They started fighting like that. I took this opportunity to quietly leave the hospital and head straight to the airport, where I bought the next available flight out. I have already moved to a new home, and my pregnancy checkups are also registered and done in the new city. It was probably luck that I wasn't pregnant. That day in the taxi, it was just simple motion sickness. I breathed a sigh of relief and then began my normal new life. It was only because of the division of property that I had to occasionally contact Jason through a lawyer. The lawyer said he never believed I wasn't pregnant and is now looking for me everywhere. The lawyer also said that he made Lily have an abortion, and for that his good buddy fell out with him and quit his high-paying job. That's really a pity. Of course, only for that innocent child. The lawyer was about to talk about Jason, but I quickly interrupted. I really had no interest in the deeds of that scumbag. Even if he were dead, I wouldn't ask a single word more. I saw Jason again a year later at the airport. He had completely changed. He was so thin that his cheeks were sunken, stubble covered his chin, and his hair was a mess, no longer exuding the elite handsomeness he once had. He looked disheveled and dejected, like a vagabond. Lily was still by his side, wearing a bohemian-style floral dress, looking bright and flamboyant, but her complexion was sallow, and the previous spark of arrogance and vitality in her eyes had faded, resembling an aging aunt. They argued at the airport, without regard for their image. Their voices were so loud that they attracted onlookers around them. What nonsense about a honeymoon! You're just using it as an excuse to find your ex-wife. She's already sent you the pregnancy test results. Why don't you believe her that she's not pregnant? Your child, your only child, was miscarried in my womb. Jason, remember this. It was you who killed your only child. What you owe me can never be repaid. Even if you find your ex-wife, I won't let you go. I and my dead child will haunt you like vengeful spirits forever. What are you looking at? A warm voice sounded beside my ear. Is it someone you know? I withdrew my gaze and smiled at the person beside me. It's my ex-husband and his newly official little lover. It turns out it's them. Seeing him like this, I feel relieved. The person beside him smiled, because now it seems I am much more handsome than he is, and I should be richer than him too. I helplessly said, George, don't joke with me. I'm a staunch single now. The person beside me is my current boss and also a classmate from high school who had a crush on me. He smiled lightly at me and said, It's okay, I have time to wait for you. I didn't say anything more, but walked alongside the others, striding towards the brightly lit exit. The story ends.